in that direction right now. And I believe that we are live on Facebook right now on the Smarter San Diego Facebook page. I'm going to share this, Steve, because what we're going to talk about today, obviously the world has changed a lot. The financial markets today with pretty much complete turmoil, and I'll show you specifically the turning point. So there's certain correlations when we look at, what happens between stocks and bonds that can kind of clue us into what's going to happen. So a lot of times when I say, the market's going to do this and I'm right, it's not because I know anything other than I just watched the bond market.
No, we as the audience, we know you don't know anything.
Yeah, I don't know much.
50-50. It goes up, it goes down. You just guess. And
stock market tomorrow will go down. Oops. I've said that a few times.
I want to be here as just a regular citizen and an audience member to just be in agreement with you that we agree. Don't you? I mean, you're doing the best you can.
Doing the best I can. And here's the thing. Okay, I'm officially shared now. So what we saw, and I may as well just go ahead and just share my screen because, today for a lot of people who are going to find this out after the fact that, oh, by the way, you lost 7% in your stock portfolio today. That's not fun. That's not fun for anybody. But let's see here. We're not going to be on Facebook anymore. We're going to go here. So this is the Dow Jones today. Steve lost 1,861 points. What I think is important to note about when we look at this is, we've been up a lot. Okay. So the market has been up tremendously. If we just look at the last 3 months, I'm just here on CNBC where you may see some rhetoric on the sides, but don't worry about it. You can see, even though today was down, over the last few months, we've been up a lot. So first thing to understand is that this isn't a sky is falling situation. This is what you would call a much needed pullback. That said, it was a significant one. More concerning to me than the pullback in stocks today was what happened in the bond market. So we got really good news. I'll show you here mortgage rates. Okay, and we'll zoom in on the most recent activity because, oh no, that's right, I can't because the thing gets in the way. So we look right here. This is the last few days. We had kind of a scare day here. The Fed saved us, bought, gave us the nice wick that I was talking about a couple of days ago that bond prices should go higher, causing mortgage rates to go lower. That has come to fruition. This right here, this down day was a rollover day. So we lost 22 basis points because the contract rolled over. That was not necessarily market action. And then yesterday we're up 40 some basis points. Amazing action. Breaking through these layers of resistance was like, hallelujah. We are looking good. We're headed for 1% mortgages. And that's kind of where a lot of people think this.
I wonder how many of your audience members look at this guy and go, really? He's doing hallelujah for 22 basis points? Like, I love it. Keep going.
They all know I'm crazy. But it's crazy good because I'm crazy about saving people money and I'm crazy about delivering service that people can to tell their friends about.
They can. So I agree.
This is what happened today, though. You'll see here that we kind of have the opposite happening. When we saw this day was like, okay, this is good. We're seeing this type of candle means that prices should go higher. Well, unfortunately, this type of candle means prices should go lower. What happened? How we were up so nicely. This was a nice green bar. Looked just like this one right here. Things were moving. It was a great morning. I was telling people, you know what? Let's not lock today. Let's hold off because we're seeing great action in the markets. Then something changed, Steve. And we went from, I forget what time of the day this was. I think it was, we'll look at the 1 day chart for today. You see how we opened lower here in the Dow and it just kind of slid down like someone on a sled going down a roof that's full of snow. It just sort of slid down all day. Never could find a reason to go higher. That right there is concerning a little bit. But more importantly is at some point here in the day, it broke down, we got over 1,000 and then it kept breaking down. I looked back and I saw that it started to affect mortgage bonds and mortgage bonds started moving. Now, I don't have the daily chart on these. These are daily candlesticks. So I can't break down for you the midday action that took place. This is all from mbshighway.com, by the way, and Barry Abib. So what I can tell you though, from personal experiences, I watched it happen. There became a system-wide capitulation, meaning that it was just sell everything. So when you see the stock market go down this much, what happens is certain funds, whether it's retirement funds, mutual funds, pension funds, they get down to a certain amount where they have to sell certain things to deal with the capitulation. People saying, I want out. People pushing the sell button going, I don't want it anymore. We're at the top. I'm out. They do that. Well, they don't want to sell assets that are down a lot. So they sell the ones that are up, which is those bonds. And so the bonds prices started coming in, and that kind of, it's a little bit of a panic, if you will, in the financial markets that's could be unwarranted, but that's kind of what happened today. So we didn't get the love that we were hoping to. I've been asking for a down day in the Dow so that we could have great mortgage rates. And we do have the Federal Reserve still has our back, but this was a pretty crazy day. And I think a lot of people are going to look at their retirement statements today, and 7% in one day is enough to make everyone go, whoa,
Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa.
7% in a day? In a day, we lost 7%. What's tomorrow going to look like?
Yeah.
Tomorrow, Steve, is the big day. So tomorrow, if we see more action like this tomorrow, that will cause a problem. Over the weekend, will cause a lot of people to look at those statements, will cause a lot of people to reevaluate things. If we're up 1,000 points tomorrow, for whatever reason, then it's back, game on, So tomorrow's a very, very big day. We'll be looking at futures. We'll be looking to see what happens. And I'll keep everybody posted about what's going on with mortgage rates. But I think most importantly, right now, Steve, when we talk about like what's going on with real estate, you were sharing with me right before we came on the air here that, hey, things are very hot in the market for you right now. I think you said you have 10 or 11 deals going. You've got a complete and total fixer in the $1 million price range that's getting multiple offers and people are coming out of the woodwork. I mean, what is going to change here about real estate? Forget just the action in the financial markets today, the action in the real estate market that you're seeing on the ground floor. What is it happening right now?
And now you're speaking my language. All these basis points and graphs and all this different stuff.
I have to assert that I'm smarter than you to begin the conversation.
Hey, you don't have to assert it anymore. We've been chatting now for years. I knew it years ago, bro. I was just trying to front a little bit. When you like glaze over with these graphs, that's when you know Steve has no idea. I just keep talking. I'll just nod my head over here.
It's the only way I can get you to agree about anything.
I have to round the numbers. You just got to trick me with graphs and data. So here's what's happening in the market, and it's no big news. Everybody has heard it. Is that essentially it still is a seller's market, and as we were talking previously, and as I've had a lot of clients that have asked me, basically the big question is why? Looking at current, and then we can look at the future a little bit. But currently the question is why? There's COVID going on. There's unemployment that's going on. There's uncertainty within the financial world. And I would say what's really unique, in my opinion, about what has happened here is that just looking from the basics of supply and demand, which is typically how I look at it. If there's a lot of supply and very little demand, well, then prices are going to be low. And right now we've got very little supply and very big demand, or not very big demand, but more demand than there is supply. So that's multiple offer situations and driving prices. But I think here's what's so unique about COVID is that when COVID arrived, it impacted both sides of the market. Both buyers and sellers said, let me wait. And certainly there were still buyers that needed to buy, and there were still sellers that absolutely had to sell, and they were on the market. And my opinion, the transactions became a lot more reasonable. People were like, hey, let's do a deal here. I don't need to totally screw somebody out of this deal. Let's make something happen. But what we experienced in our local market is that a lot of sellers also decided, you know what, with COVID, maybe I want to wait. Maybe let's see how this goes. So we have this high demand and low supply before COVID, and then COVID shows up and they both shrink. So essentially, it's not a situation where buyers completely left the market, but then a whole bunch of supply hit the market, which is kind of what everybody was expecting. What I got a lot of calls from investors and buyers, et cetera, thinking, hey, there's going to be some great deals out there. There's going to be some opportunities. And there was a little discussion about distressed properties, forbearance. I think you've put forth some great information. If you haven't seen it as a viewer, I definitely recommend you look back over the previous weeks and months for some of the stuff that Derrick has had. But I think there was this expectation like sellers were ready to dump property and get me out of this market. And that really hasn't been the case. Absolutely, there have been sellers that have said, well, maybe we'll wait on this move, or hey, we were expecting to get transferred to New York City and now that's kind of on hold, so maybe the house is kind of on hold. And there, so what's just that equal impact has basically left us in the same market. Maybe there are fewer buyers, but not substantially. Maybe there are fewer sellers, but not substantially. And what's really impacting all of this is just that situation where we continue to have more demand than supply. So
what's impacting it? I'll tell you right now, not to cut you off. I like that's one of Steve's favorite famous lines. If you don't know, he likes to cut me off and then say, "Not to cut you off."
not to cut
Not
you
to
off.
cut you off, but let me
All
cut
right.
you off real quick. What's really driving all of this is mortgage rates. And this is the reason why I've been updating on it and why I've been trying to educate about how it works and where it's at, because this is it. I mean, if mortgage rates go up 1% tomorrow, it changes everything. Changes everything. I mean, we've seen slight increases in interest rates take place and people go, oh no, I've never, no, 3.25. Nope. I want to wait till rates go lower. So, that's the mindset that we have, because when you have rates that are low for so long, they don't become low anymore. We keep saying rates are really low. And people are like, no, that's just what they are. That's what they're thinking. No, that's just what rates are.
It's normal. Yeah, it's the new normal.
The new normal. Exactly. So, we might be saying, hey, rate, and I just actually posted an article today that rates hit an all-time low. As for conventional, I'm focused on VA, of course, and we're seeing some of that stuff happening in the VA space too. But the reality is that it's mortgage rates that drive this whole machine, the whole real estate machine, which drives lots of the other economic machines in this country. We need those low interest rates, and the Federal Reserve knows this. I mean, you've seen them. They're just whatever you need, blank check. How much? Come on, bam, bam. You get some. You get some. The president actually tweeted today, they're giving hundreds of millions to San Diego MTS. Do you see this? He actually tweeted it. Like, I'm allocating money right now to the MTS San Diego to keep it going. So, they are cool with opening up the checkbook. They're getting the wallet out, and it sounds like that when it hits the table, because it's so full of money. So in pushing some of that money towards the interest rates, what it does, two things. Number one, stimulates real estate, refinance activity. Listen, this stuff's really good. I'm having someone refinance saving $500 a month. I'm having another person saving $1,000 a month by refinancing.
Absolutely.
It's a huge amount of money that it gets sort of, it's almost like income. It's basically a way of changing someone's net P&L every month on their personal side, so that allows them to spend more money. These are very good things for the economy. It also helps people buy homes, very good for real estate, which is very good for the economy. But also, and this is the kicker, Steve, it also, when you have a low interest rate environment, it allows the government to borrow more money at a cheaper rate. And and they are into borrowing money. So they do it via bonds, which they'll do auctions. So auction bonds off, get the money, use it for whatever purpose they want. So they like this. And we have a businessman as the president, understands how this works. We're going to have low rates. We're going to have low rates. So this is a good thing, but that's the real driver. Because I promise you, if rates went up 1%, it would change a lot of things. It would change a lot of things for a lot of people, particularly on the buy side. People would just say, well, I'll wait, because we have.
And so then it kind of gets us to looking forward. And a lot of people are asking me, well, what does this look like? Should we wait? And I would say, so I started in 2005. So in 15 years, there's never been a more difficult time for us as within the industry, as professionals with the industry, to tell you what it looks like in 6 weeks, let alone 6 months. There is so much uncertainty right now in terms of the stock market 2 days ago, Tuesday, the stock market was year to date in the black. As of today, the stock market is now down, 10%, 8%, something like right around there, year to date. And so that happened essentially overnight. And what's interesting is, I don't want to make it sound like there's nothing new that has happened in our world, but in the last 2 days, there hasn't been some striking new news that all of a sudden, it's just the uncertainty that's going on. So in the most simplistic way to be able to describe, hey, here's what's coming. And for me, not an economist, not good with all of the different graphs and maps and everything else that Derrick has, looking at supply and demand, what we need is either a huge reduction in demand or a huge increase in supply. And so what would that look like? An increase in supply would be distressed properties. All of a sudden, people can't make their mortgage payments anymore, and so they lose their house, foreclosures, short sales. That's one option. Or another option might be that there is something locally that requires that people get out of the area. Hey, all of a sudden Qualcomm decides we're no longer going to be in San Diego. The Navy says we're pulling out of San Diego, something like that. So that certainly could impact supply, but I don't really see either of those majorly happening. So then the only way that we would have a major reduction would in our housing market would be a reduction in the demand. And I liked the title that you have for this, our little discussion here, Derrick, and you'd kind of talk about what's happening in how has the real estate transaction changed. And so the demand could change if lending becomes different, more stringent, if their requirements change in such a way that buyers need to show 3 years tax returns or different things like that. And I would say that's, of those two scenarios, that's more likely. However, I still think that's tremendously unlikely. My opinion, just looking at supply and demand, and obviously there are many more factors, as Derrick's talking about, interest rates, et cetera, which also play into those supply and demand. But we either need a lot more houses to come on the market to where there is enough housing to meet the demand or exceed the demand, and buyers have numerous choices and are able to go, I'll write an offer on these two houses and let's see which one hits, and I'll negotiate low, which is one way. Or we just need the demand to basically dry up. And I don't foresee with interest, I mean, you talked about interest rates sub 3. I don't see demand drying up, especially when rents are astronomical. I mean, you're spending 30 grand a year on rent, probably average, $90,000 in 3 years. I just feel like, and buyers can look at it and go, I mean, prices are so high that it's not like you can get a payment that's lower than your rent in the same neighborhood, but you're paying yourself. You're paying down the principal. You're able to write off the things associated with property taxes, et cetera. At least it gets you in the game. And at 2 7/8 or whatever some of the numbers that you're locking people at, there are certainly opportunities there.
Well, and I'll summarize what Steve just said by repeating what I just said right before Steve, which is that this thing.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but
this thing is totally driven by interest rates. And here's the thing, that if you want to hear from the kind of the horse's mouth, Chairman Powell released some notes this week and made his statement, and basically said, hey, listen, we're not touching interest rates until 2022. So not only this year and next year, we'll look at this again in 2022. We're shelving that conversation. That conversation's on the shelf. Yeah. We're not even going to think about it. The other thing that he said was that GDP bouncing to 5% next year. Everyone ignores that. No one wants to hear that for some reason. GDP to 5% already next year? That's a great sign that that's what his forecast is. All anyone saw with this was, hey, he said some other things that aren't in the Cliff's notes here that we're concerning about right now, saying, hey, we do have a very big problem right now. It is not going to get solved super fast, but don't worry, next year we're predicting GDP at 5% and we're going to keep interest rates low through 2022. Whoa. So initially, when he said this, the stock market did well, but obviously it wore off very quickly today as traders went the other direction. So I think, not to beat a dead horse with that, but interest rates are the key thing to watch. It's the key thing to watch. Could we see 1% something mortgage rates? People have been talking about that. People have been saying mortgage rates are for sure headed to 1%. I cannot agree with that. I don't know how all the people in the chain are able to make money if that's the case. I don't know where the skim would have to take place. I don't know if it's possible for the ultimate mortgage holders here, which remember 80% of all loans are held by Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, and then the rest is pretty much Ginnie Mae. It's all government, quasi government, whatever you want to call it. Are they going to be able to be sustainable, or is it going to become the post office, right? Where we all agree that we should have the post office, even though the post office loses tens of billions of dollars a year. We all are, no one's, protesting in the streets about the post office, right? So will that happen with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac? Probably not. So maybe they'll just become, money sucks, just like the post office, and they'll still exist there and it'll be okay. It's all possible.
What are you seeing from the loan side? I can tell you from the real estate side on some of the things that we've started to see more recently and in the last couple of months that are the new normal. What are you seeing from the loan side that makes, how is the transaction changing for you?
So on the loan side, I think that it's not that guidelines are tighter, but I do believe that underwriting's tighter. From the standpoint that it feels as if the directive from the top down is, let's be very careful about stuff. Let's make sure we have everything in the right place. They're adding a few different disclosures. There's COVID-19 specific disclosures that are still in play right now. There's different things like that. But for the most part, I mean, for me being a VA specialist, we're still underwriting VA guidelines. VA guidelines aren't changing. I mean, the only overlay we have is minimum credit score 600. So outside of that, we're underwriting guidelines. So I would get loans on a regular basis from people who said they went somewhere else and were told they couldn't get it. And that's the other thing, Steve, that I meant to, thank you for bringing this up. I meant to mention earlier, we were talking about demand. The big thing here that's different than when we saw a crash before. When we saw a crash before, there were a bunch of people who were buying houses that really couldn't afford them. And what we have now is we have actually a huge population of people who can afford to buy who aren't.
You're choosing.
So we have a flip flop there, and that's good because that's we'll call it
market. I would say, in my opinion, not to interrupt you, but I will anyway.
He's interrupting.
Previously, when I say previously, I would say in our big crash, 2006, 2007, that was propped up with buyers that didn't have income and stated income loans and these types of things. What I will say is now, I'm certainly interested to hear from your side, but I don't think I have done a deal in years with an adjustable rate mortgage. And they're offered. There are options to do 5-year ARMs, et cetera. But the vast majority of what's out there is buyers are electing for 30-year fixed, not some teaser, let me get in, this is going to be a stretch, but we'll figure out how to make it work. It's government-backed loans like VA, FHA, and it's 20% down buyers. One quick story that I will tell you, I did a high-end flip in the Poway area. We ended up with multiple offers, well over asking price, and it came down to two different buyers. A 20% down jumbo loan. They had put 20% down, but because the price was high enough that loan amount was going to be jumbo, which is what, 812 or whatever it
701,500, yeah.
701,500. So they were getting a loan amount more than 701,500, and the other was a VA loan. And I'm working with an experienced flipper, and the flipper says, we'll go with the VA offer. Because in COVID, the government-backed loans, to your point, the government-backed loans are the safest. And we closed the deal and praised fine, and there was no issues. And it's just so interesting to me that now, all of a sudden, the pendulum has swung to the side that supports, if you qualify for a VA loan, jump into this market. Because now all of a sudden, not only will you have, my opinion, and it's not an opinion that you have the best interest rate, but you also have clout within this market. I think for years, unnecessarily and unfairly, VA loans have been looked at as too stressful, too difficult, too many hoops for the seller to jump through. It's crap. And now all of a sudden, VA loans, people feel like government-backed loans, don't need to worry about my buyer losing their job. Yes, we will do it. Exactly. Because the challenge, I would say, in my opinion, of these jumbo loans is that if you're securing $1 million loan, that means you're buying $1.5 million property. And if you're buying $1.5 million property, you're probably not a W-2 employee. You're probably a business owner. You're probably 1099. And so if you're 1099, that's what's scary right now for most lenders, because they're looking at, I need to see, how has COVID impacted your business? Are you laying off employees? All this different stuff. The stability is absolutely the word. The biggest thing that I can recommend beyond refinance, I certainly recommend that if you're a homeowner that you look at refinancing, is if you're a VA buyer, there's so much opportunity right now in the market. And don't get me wrong, there certainly is, it's multiple offers, it's all these different things, but you have clout. You have the ability to say, this is pre-approved and we're going to be able to do it. And there's certain things that we still got to do. We got to do a home inspection. The property's got to appraise. We got to approve the disclosures and the HOA documents, et cetera, all the normal stuff. But there is so much more comfort that sellers are finding with a VA offer. And it's been a long time since that was the case.
That's a very interesting situation. That was a savvy seller that you had there, Steve.
Yeah.
Very savvy, knowing that, hey, you know, the jumbo market's been a moving bullseye here for the past few months. Do we really want to jump into that pool? Do we really want to get into that pool when we know it's been extremely wavy, when this VA loan pool has been here for decades and is pretty much unwavering? I mean, there's, you know, from lender to lender, you will see some different credit score, you know, overlays. And they said, that's our only overlay. And we don't charge any fees. So we make it very easy for people to understand what's going on and what they're getting. But for the most part, you know, the actual guidelines, they have changed. They have been adjusted by VA occasionally, here and there, once or twice a year. They'll make a small adjustment to this or that. But you're not seeing these sweeping changes. It's never going to be like, oh, that program's not here anymore. So it is very, very solid. And I thank you for mentioning that, because we are in a competitive environment. And I'm frequently working hard to help get our clients' offers accepted and help people understand that, you know, this VA offer is actually really, really solid. It's not going anywhere. This active duty sailor is not losing his job. Okay, he's in good shape, and he's planning on staying here for a while. And this BAH that's coming in tax-free is something that's burning a hole in his pocket. He doesn't want to throw it away on rent anymore. And I completely understand that. So that's pretty cool to hear that that is actually taking place, and we're seeing the changing of the guard, if you will, and the understanding of the VA home loan benefit here in San Diego. I'm trying my best to be a part of that solution and a part of the sounding board for that reality that exists out there. I think as far as, okay, we've talked about where we're in right now, the what's next. Okay, so we showed, hey, the Federal Reserve is behind keeping rates low. So what happens in a low interest rate environment if we're looking forward to the real estate market? Here's a couple things I have, and I'll just look at specific examples. Individuals of mine who were in escrow, let's say they canceled because they got cold feet or whatever it was 6 months ago, 12 months ago, whenever it was. And, you know, they look back at that property now and they're like, damn,
Yeah.
how did that property go up $30,000 in 6 months or $50,000 in 6 months? And here I am spending $3,000 a month on rent. You know, how did I get off the tracks? And I think the purpose of buying the home is not necessarily because you want to gain equity quickly, right? That's not the reason that we buy homes. But it does matter when we don't buy a house, how much the price goes up quickly.
It's very well said. It's very well said. I mean, just because absolutely, if you're buying a primary residence, whether once you're in, if it goes up $100,000, I mean, same as in the stock market, it's not realized until you sell it. And I mean, you want the stability. Nobody wants to buy a home and then all of a sudden the value to go down, but you're not turning around and selling it. You're staying in the property for a significant amount of time. But it's a great point that if you miss out on a house or you don't jump in, or you decide, hey, you know what, I'm going to wait 6 months so that I can save another $10,000. The problem becomes if the market in the past was going up 6% annually, and that's not linear. It's not like it was, we've talked about, you and I, about how there's still movements within the residential market. But if it was linear and 6% is 0.5% every month, so 1% every 2 months. So if you wait 6 months, that's 3% that the market has gone up. And if you wait 3 months to save $10,000, a $500,000 house that's gone up 3%, it's gone up $15,000. So I agree, you're able to leverage money and use it as a down payment and all these different things. But I think that people are waiting until it's perfect. And if you wait until it's perfect, it's never going to be perfect.
That's the reality.
It
Because
never is.
even if prices, if someone says, hey, well, I want prices to come down 20% and then I'll buy. When prices are down 20%, then you'll say, well, I don't know if this is the bottom yet. I need to wait until they're down 30. If you kind of have that mentality that, well, it could be better than it is right now, that's always going to be true. That's
And,
never going to change.
and it's a great point, Derrick. I mean, I will tell you for 8 years, 7 years, 8 years, I have had people call me that have just said, you know what, as soon as there's a drop in the market, as soon as we feel some kind of just opportunity, call me and I'm going to be ready to jump in. So I mean, as every realtor keeps a list of these people, yeah, I'll keep your name. And so like April 1st, right after COVID hits, we're starting to feel everything happening in the market, and not in the residential market yet, but we're kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop. I called 15 people and every one of them said, I'm not so sure right now. I want to see how this plays out. There's always the thought, there's always this discussion of let's wait until it drops and then we'll jump in. And I'm here to tell you, if the market does take a drop, it's something that impacts all of us. It's not something that impacts everyone but you, and that you've got your money just sitting on the sideline ready to go. It's probably the biggest recommendation that I can make, and I certainly don't want to make it sound like a sales pitch that Derrick and I are given a sales pitch, but it really is. If you're a VA buyer, there's a lot of opportunity and you got to jump in quick.
Yeah, especially if you're getting BAH, please don't spend it on rent. It's such a great opportunity to own something and to get those three big pieces that you get with real estate, which is the opportunity for tax deduction, the opportunity for appreciation, and principal pay down, equity creation. You get all three of those things when you own. You do not get a dime for any one of those things when you rent. But, some people need to go through a process. This is why we talk about real estate strategy. Don't just run out and buy a house. Let's have a strategy. Let's make sure you buy something that you can own for the long haul, because you don't have to be a genius to do well with real estate. All you have to do is buy and keep it. If you do that, you win. That's it. So you don't have to be savvy. You don't have to time the market perfectly. You just have to make sure that you make a purchase that can last a long time for you. And that's what we talk about real estate and homeownership strategy. Steve, I want to put you on the spot.
Oh,
because I was about to give my prediction for moving forward when you interrupted me. So now I'm going to make you go first. So what are your predictions? I think you might be ahead of me on these so far in the years we've been doing this, but that doesn't make you any more trustworthy than me.
I mean, like, would you go with the guy that consistently is right, or do you want to go with the guy that sometimes is wrong? I mean, I'm just wanted to play the hit me.
So let's break this down to two questions. Let's break this down to the remainder of 2020, and then let's talk about 2021. I think that's that's in people's real estate forecast. Like, we're buying a house this year, we're buying a house next year. Get the crystal ball out.
All right, keep going. Okay.
2020.
2020 or 2021? This year, what happens the rest of this
year and next year?
So this year, I can tell you what happens is more of the same, which is a solid amount of demand. And here's what I will say is, my opinion, the definition of home has changed. Now, many of us are sheltering in place at home. For those of you that don't know, right before this call, Derrick had to step out and tell his wife and son and daughter, hey, I'm going live. So keep it down. I think while on this call, there was actually, did they like open the door real quick and were like, hey, what's going on? And had to close the door or something? Like, my daughter is downstairs. What we are experiencing is a change in the way that people are viewing their home. And good places that are upgraded, where buyers that especially are owner occupied are looking at it and going, this is the place that I want to spend with my family. I don't want to say that they don't care about what it costs, but that is lower on their list, because there is the feeling that we're going to be here for the long haul.
And understanding of how important the right home is.
Absolutely.
A greater understanding than when you were only spending a couple hours there and all the rest of your days at the office.
Absolutely. So it is a seller's market. I'll go on record saying that. But here's the thing. If you're a seller, don't cut corners. Don't list it as is. Fix it, make it beautiful, and then you'll get 9 offers. If you cut corners and say, seller's market. The house is basically going to sell itself. Why do I even need a realtor? Maybe I'll just list it for sale by owner. Let me go with one of these discount guys. Then you're going to experience full COVID. You're gonna get beat up. So what do I expect is going to happen in this market? It's great product is going to sell quickly. A great buddy of mine, Brandon Murray, he listed a property. He said he had 17 offers. 17 offers. That means 16 people aren't going to get that house. And those 16 people are looking in that neighborhood. And that property was beautiful. He always does such a nice job in prepping it. So just something to be aware of. So end of this year, this is Steve Ploetz, long-winded. End of this year, we're going to see more of the same. It's going to be a seller's market. There's going to be a lot of demand out there. My expectation is interest rates are going to remain same. And as we get into the election years are always challenging for all markets, I would say. And perhaps, in my opinion, in my short lifetime, this may be one of the most polarizing elections that we see. And so I think that there will certainly be some unrest. I think there'll be some things that needs to get navigated. I think the Dow and everything that Derrick is talking about and is way more wise upon in the financial side is going to be really uncertain. But I suspect that there will be a fair amount of people that say, I want to put my money into something safe. I am 60 years old and I don't know what this looks like for the next 10 years. Maybe what I will do is take my money out and look at retiring now, look at, should I pull money out and buy a home for my children or offer them something right now, give them their inheritance now. So it's going to continue to be wacky. That's my prediction. 2021, I think a lot of it is contingent upon a variety of factors. And I know what the reasons I love Derrick, he always wants always or never, like make a stand. Don't really
Don't tell me it depends, Steve. Give me a freaking answer.
It depends. But it depends. It depends on unemployment. If people don't have jobs, they're not going to be able to buy houses. I suspect that there's going to be a lot of employers that look at even if they said tomorrow COVID has gone away, I think there's going to be a lot of employers that don't immediately call back 100% of their employees and say, welcome back, all the same old stuff. What we are learning as a society is what we can do in business from home and how small can we make it? What fat can we cut? So I think there's going to be some really qualified people that don't get brought back to work.
A lot of people aren't going back to work because they're doing better on unemployment. I mean, the biggest issue, so a lot of the people who are unemployed are not in the home buyer demographic. And so that's part of the reason why we haven't seen a huge impact from it anywhere in the country. Real estate's still on fire everywhere because the majority of the people who have been out of work were not in the home buyer demographic. Now, some of them were. They weren't all out of the home buyer demographic, but we lost some buyers, but not nearly enough to make a dent in the supply and demand equation. Yeah. I'm going to make a bolder statement, Steve. Yep. This is something that, and you can attest to this, even when I was negative on real estate or when I was neutral or when I was saying, you know what, it might make sense to sell here. We have a great opportunity. Even when I was saying that, I was still saying long-term prices in San Diego are going to double or triple. Like we will all live to see that because this is a better option than San Francisco. This is a better option than Vancouver. This is a better option than New York or Los Angeles. And we're way, way, way discounted in comparison to these areas. So we're going to see.
Branson? Branson competes with us. There's some things going on in Branson. I mean, let's talk about Missouri for a moment. Huh?
Branson, Missouri. Yeah. You can buy a house for $100,000, a nice one. So we did our wedding there, super cheap. So, you have a situation where I think we're beginning to see, this is sort of the first few dominoes of that happening. I think we're going to see prices go much higher because the Fed is going to help keep interest rates low, because we haven't even seen rates be as low as they should be based on where bond prices are, because banks haven't had to give up all the money yet because of demand. So there's room for rates to go lower, even if bond prices don't go higher. And we have a scenario where we just are from a building standpoint, like most areas of the country, like we're talking about Missouri, they're building. They're like, okay, we'll just go to the next part of pasture. As soon as you need room, just keep going that way. And there's more of it. We don't have that. I mean, they're where are new builds right now? Temecula, Murrieta, Fallbrook.
T. Yeah,
Okay, there's some in Santee. Not a lot.
yeah.
Not like hundreds of homes. Maybe there's a few dozen.
Yeah,
In
it's east, it's inland. It's, I mean, we have a client that opened in Julian this past week. I mean, I feel like, and people are looking at those kinds of opportunities. I completely agree with you that the coastal areas, I mean, there's tremendous demand.
yeah, and that's not going to change. There's no way to really add to it. There's been talks, and they're talking about now San Diego Metro making it easier for people to build up, but that's not really the solution. I mean, the you build up in Metro. Downtown's great, and Metro's great. Hillcrest, that whole area, Bakersfield, Cortez, all that. I love all that area. It's great. It's tremendous. Love going there. Little Italy is one of my favorite places. But that's not really the dream for most people to live in a high rise. It's just not. For most people, that's not the dream. The dream is the house with the white picket fence in the yard with the dog and the kids playing in the pool. That's the real dream. If I were to sit here and say, hey, listen, Steve, I've got this house for sale and we're going to run an ad. This one is a high rise with a sick view of the bay and crazy sunsets and amenities is through the roof. This is a detached house with a crazy pool and vaulted ceilings. And let's see which one gets more action.
Oh,
The
100%.
one with the pool will blow up. The high rise, a lot of people will click and they'll look at the photos because they think it's cool. But when it comes down to it, am I going to put my money down on this thing? Is this my forever place? Most people still want the detached house in the prairie. And so with that said, when we talk about construction, building up isn't going to fix that. It's a band-aid, but it's not a solution to stint the rising value of real estate, is particularly single family detached real estate. And that's the problem. That's the problem, because that inventory is not fixed. There's still more coming, but it's coming at such a trickle in comparison to the thirst that exists in the marketplace. So that imbalance is what I believe we're going to see prices go up a lot in the next few years. It's the beginning of what I've been predicting for years, which is that San Diego is not a secret anymore. It's not. Getting a lot of people who are sick of wherever they were that are wealthy, they want to come here and chill. You're seeing people from other countries. We're on the radar. We're on the radar. We have some of the best beaches in the world here, the best climate in the world here. And it's not nearly as expensive as a lot of other places, which makes no sense. The market is figuring this out, Steve. It's starting to correct itself, and this is the beginning of it. So that's my major concern for people who are more into the waiting. And I've got a lot of people waiting. I got a lot of people who were in escrow, got out, and now they said, we're going to rent for a year. We're going to see what happens here. That's going to probably cost them a lot of money, and it's probably going to cost them a lot of money.
Timing the market is really, really challenging. You and I are both in the industry, and I don't think I would be able to time the market as well. And it isn't linear. It's not going up and then going down. There are adjustments along the way, and we have experienced in February, January. I mean, we talked about the Redfin now from a year ago, where they timed it right with a purchase where there was a little bit of a lull. And 3 months, all of a sudden, everybody's like, what's going on? And then things bounce back. And I just feel like it's so easy to time it wrong. It really is easier to do that, and you end up disrupting your family, disrupting your life, disrupting your pocketbook. That if I'm in agreement with you, Derrick, that if we're in, and the nice thing about Zoom is that I can use the visual. If there's a rising tide,
you can do that in the studio too, Steve.
There really is raising all chips. Jump in, buy a condo, buy something small, and get a chip on the table. Because to your point, the biggest thing that I feel like is scary for me is representing a buyer who says, hey, I'm going to take a break and let's revisit this next year. Totally your call. I'm not trying to give you some sales pitch on why you need to jump in. You're an adult, you can make your own decisions. But my concern is, and sometimes I say it and sometimes I don't, is my concern is in 6 months, the market might be 4% higher, which doesn't sound like a big number, but it could be $25,000. And if the median house is $650 in San Diego County, 4% is 30 grand. And now all of a sudden that means the house that you were looking at 625 is 655.
Hold on, we have more Steve's fuzzy math coming into the equation here. You shouldn't do these things on the fly with the numbers guy.
What did I say?
You said 650, 4%,
Oh, yeah.
26,000, not 30,000, but it's close. It's close.
Round. What do you mean fuzzy math? That's my math. You round it. You just make it up and keep going.
My concern, I will double down on what you said, but my concern is more that person who says I'll wait a year, 5 years later, what do we, where are we at then? That's when it's really scary, because I talk to people every day who are looking to buy a house, and a lot of times they're frustrated and just over it paying rent. And so, and I don't always ask this question because I know it's painful. I know I don't always ask the question, how long have you been renting? But sometimes I do, because I want to know, is that something that is a new thought, or is this an old thought? When someone really shows frustration renting, sick of throwing money away on rent. Okay, how long have you been renting? 11 years.
Yeah. How much is rent? If you don't mind me asking, how much have you paid in rent?
Oh, I see. It's hard to go there. It's a soft spot. That's a soft spot.
$325,000 in rent in those 11 years. I mean, whatever those numbers are. And what I think is unfortunate is, I mean, I agree with you. The process is frustrating. There is multiple offers out there. You will write an offer on a property and may not get it, and have to get back in the car and look at more homes. But people, as sometimes there is a tendency to solve a short-term problem, like my lease is coming due in July. Why don't I just sign another lease? Because what I don't want to do is spend money to break a lease, because my goodness, that's $3,000. Or I don't want to go into a short-term month-to-month, because the price of rent goes up $200 a month, $300 a month, versus what you and I are talking about in Steve's fuzzy math is $35,000 over that same 6 month period. I think I just rounded it from 26 to 30.
Man, it just keeps going higher.
45, 50.
He's really buying into my theory.
$1 billion. Yeah.
And before you know it, it's $1 billion. So no, you're 100% right. And I would recommend.
Is this recorded? Did we just get Steve? You're 100% right. Can somebody play the tape back? Or Steve, you're 100% right.
Steve is never right. So my tip there, Steve, is always try to be month to month. When you have that hard deadline, it can really put a gun to your head when you're buying. Put yourself in a month-to-month position. That is the best position to negotiate from. If you want to negotiate well, you always have to be willing to walk away. You always need to make sure that you have a plan B. I think being month-to-month is really nice and clean, because then you can wait till you're in escrow for a little bit and then give your 30-day notice, maybe after the inspection, after the appraisal or something like that, have a little overlap period for moving and transferring things and whatnot. That's really the ideal way to buy in any marketplace. And that's in, my Smarter Home Buyer video on the YouTube channel. So I think we've got our predictions in. Steve, any parting words?
No, I always appreciate you making the time to do these. My recommendation, I can speak for both myself and for you, is we're happy to have a conversation. And so if there's things that you don't understand about this market as a viewer, or you think, I don't want a sales pitch, I just want to have a conversation, we're both busy, and we're both more than happy to have that kind of conversation. And I'm usually right, and Derrick's like 50% of the time right.
Yep. Usually Steve is very interruptive and bad at math, but he has been known to be correct about a few things here and there. Steve, appreciate your time, brother. Thank you so much. Share this video with your friends. Let's help make everyone smarter than everyone else when it comes to buying San Diego real estate.